Hello, and welcome to the Santaland podcast. I created it just for you. I'm your host, Tony Felice. In each episode, I'll read to you for 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about what we just heard. Like the cricket in my story, I'll guide you through a grown-up fairy tale, one that explores ideas of existence, identity, and the soul's journey through trauma, and the transformative power of love. By the end, you'll have heard my whole story, a sneak peek into the creative process of bringing a book to life. Maybe we'll read other books together. But for now, follow the wise cricket and discover the Santaland within yourself, a place of hope, connection, and peace that's already inside of you. This podcast is especially made for those like me who feel a little different and maybe talk about math at weddings or philosophy at funerals. And like me, maybe you have a loving husband, or a wife, or somebody else that loves you. If not, we're here to love you, because you're in good company, my dear friends, here in Santaland. Hello, and welcome to the Santaland podcast. I am very happy that you're here. Tonight's reading is Chapter 20, entitled Pieced Together from Sentences. It was a Tuesday in May, about 12:34 precisely. David looked at Tom again from across the room in the barn. He wished he had known Tom as a boy. Wendy and Mac had given Tom a very nice childhood, despite the obvious, it seemed. And he understood their impulse to pretend as if nothing had happened. It saved Tom, and it wrecked Tom. David could not imagine the choices parents would have to make, so he was certain that Wendy had done her best with sentences. Maybe, by reading to Tom from literature, she had helped him discover other worlds he never knew existed. By becoming lost in fantasies and those adventures, he developed a framework of logic formed from all those words and patterns in those great books. The stories mended Tom's broken parts. Above all, though, Tom felt the books were telling him that anything was possible, for those worlds were thought up by someone just like him. He thought he could do that, so he tried, and he was supported by Wendy and Mac. Her special little boy was indeed smart and clever and intuitive and artistic. And the premises in those books, for Tom, they thwarted the idea of hopelessness because of their grandeur, premises that were beginning conclusions that inspired him to write in a similar way. Like a flame that can illuminate a darkened room, even if until then it had been dark forever. That flame burns in you. That's how you wake up, beloved, one spark at a time. One neural synapse firing at the right time creates understanding from the contradictory trajectory of your life. That's called perspective. And much like love, is often more resonant when viewed from behind. From across the room, David watched Tom scratch his arm near the shoulder. A wolf peeked out from under the sleeve of his shirt, the only tattoo Tom had. The wolf. It gave David comfort. He stood up. "Well, I better get dinner going, and Brammy needs a walk." "Honey, we have 23 acres, Tom replied. "I know, but you know how much Brammy loves the beach," he replied. Tom smiled wistfully. Yes, Brammy loves the beach. He knew David went there for lots of reasons, not just for the dog. "Guess who was in the nursery yesterday mining strawberries?" "Who?" "Claire. She accused me of taking all of them and selling them to rich white ladies who don't give a rat's ass about organic anything." A direct quote. David laughed. "That sounds like Claire," Tom said. "Did she get all the strawberries she wanted?" "Yes, but I think she was really up here to spy," David replied. "Probably," Tom said. "Sounds like her." "I'm serious. She's starting to worry about you," said David. He was cautious, throwing that out there. I was as silent as a snail. David motioned for the dog. When Brahms lumbered over, he reached down and stroked the soft velvety ears. He had a habit of rubbing the dog's ears unconsciously. He stooped down and lived in the dark brown eyes and then reached over and jiggled the dog's collar, ensuring it was snugly snapped together. It had a GPS device on it. Tom tagged everything in the house, and eventually he got to the dog. David was fine with it. They joked about Tom's phone location services listing all his things and people, but understood that it was necessary. I suppose if Tom knew of my existence back then, he'd want to tag me too. "I want to do my mother justice," Tom said, a thought becoming accidental speech as he turned in his chair. "You will, babe," David said, standing up and gathering the leash in his hands. It was as good a parting line as any, so he and the dog walked out into the sunshine. David turned and closed the door quietly behind him. He blew a kiss and started walking towards the truck in the driveway to sunnier pursuits. Okay, that was chapter 20, pieced together from sentences. And these are all, of course, elements are true for my life. My mother read to me from the classics from the time I was a little boy. I did go to school early. I did graduate school earlier. I have probably an unhealthy sense of curiosity. It hasn't killed me, the cat, but it sure has come close sometimes. But I do have an insatiable curiosity that began long before anything terrible happened to me. But those books really unlocked in me the idea that all these worlds were possible, and good always triumphs in the end. For the most part, as an adult, when I started reading other bleaker things, that wasn't always the case. But really, honestly, when you think about every single book you've ever read, what is the core of the book? It is it is the character's intense desire for intimate emotional connection with another human being. That's it. I don't care if you're reading about Alexander the Great or anybody else, for that matter. The quest for love, the quest for honor, integrity. These are things that I read as a kid and colored my idea of the world. And one of the biggest heartaches that I ever experienced was when I realized that not everybody was like me. Not everybody has a sense of curiosity. Not everybody wants to be seen or known or have intimate relationships with other people. That's not always the case. But see, Tom is a dreamer before what happens to him, and then he becomes a pragmatic optimist. Because without optimism, he didn't have anything. So for me, reading from the classics, and the fact that David knows these things, and David has had those intimate conversations with family members, that shows the level of trust that people have in this guy, and the level of trust that Tom has in him. That and he's not a doormat by any stretch of the imagination. He's a fully vibrant, productive human being that just has a really wonderful desire to be of service to other people. Gets a kick out of just making people happy. And that has a strong influence on Tom, the character, over the 30 years they are together, I would imagine. And certainly for the 20 years that Tim and I have been together, it is the case with me. This is a direct, David is really, all the best parts of my husband are rolled into that character. And was there anything else I wanted to say about this chapter before moving on? Other than to just, I sort of reemphasize this idea that when things happen to people, when they have trauma in their lives, sometimes it's one person can mean the difference between awful things and somebody surviving. And to have that person be someone that sees you and loves you for everything you already are is the greatest gift in the world. I wish everybody could know what it's like to be in a relationship for such a long period of time with such healthy respect and intimate um, understanding of each other. It truly is a gift. And let's hope Tom sees this gift and takes it seriously. So thank you for tuning in again. I really appreciate any comments or feedback that you have. Send it along. And once again, I am eternally grateful. This story may be drawn from my life, but I'm writing about what I know. And what I know is that you want to feel loved and seen. I know it. I know you do. And I want you to find yourself in these characters. You and your husband, you and your wife, whomever, you and your parents, that you can see how important people are to each other, because it's like that equation where I had to insert perspective into the equation, because you have to take that into consideration. Whose perspective of this thing that's going on are we talking about? Because if it's the person, if it's the object being observed, then that's a different experience. If you're the object moving through space, that's a different experience. And if you're God, that's a different experience. And what happens in a really, truly wonderful relationship like I have is that all three are present. All three are present, which is really quite fascinating. You know, that's how you feel home when you find the right person. It's not about fireworks. Fireworks are great, and they often accompany, sometimes they don't, but they often accompany this other feeling, this feeling of being home and knowing you've made the right choice. And so I am so happy for Tom that he found David, and that David is the person he is. I really am. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to sharing with you again the next time. God bless.